All right, let's dive right into one of the most intense and honestly misunderstood images in the entire book of Revelation, the breaking of the second seal. We're talking about that fiery red horse. Now, it's a symbol of war, of strife, of chaos, for sure. But as we're about to see through the eyes of early Christian thinkers, there is a much, much deeper story going on here. So here's our roadmap. We're going to start right at the moment the seal is cracked open. Then we'll look at the horse itself, its rider, and that ominous mission to take peace from the earth. And stick around, because we're going to finish by uncovering the hidden divine purpose that early commentators believed was behind all of this chaos. First up, the opening of the second seal. Now, before we even get to the horsemen, it is absolutely crucial to understand the setting. See, this chaos doesn't just erupt out of nowhere. It unfolds within a very specific and very important divine framework. Check this out. The commentator Oekimenius frames this whole event in a really fascinating way. He basically says, hey, remember, this seal is only opened after Christ has already defeated evil. So in his view, everything that's about to happen, no matter how wild it gets, is happening under the authority of a Christ who has already won. That changes things, doesn't it? And here we go. This is the moment. The seal breaks, and a command is given by a creature described as a bull. Now, for Andrew of Caesarea, this was no random animal. He saw it as deeply symbolic, linking the image of the bull directly to the sacred sacrifices of the holy martyrs. It just sets this incredibly somber and significant tone for everything that's about to follow. All right, let's get to the main event, the central image of this passage. A fiery red horse appears on the scene, and you better believe its color is packed with meaning. You know, the early commentators were convinced that every single detail in Revelation mattered. The choice of a red horse wasn't just for some cheap dramatic effect. Oh no, it was a key, a huge clue to understanding its entire purpose. So, what's the big deal with red? Well, according to thinkers like Oekimenius and Andrew of Caesarea, it's not just one thing. It has this complex threefold meaning. Yeah, it points to the obvious stuff, bloodshed, war, strife. But it also points to the passionate, red-hot faith of the martyrs who are suffering for their beliefs right in the middle of all this chaos. And this is a really brilliant point made by Caesarius of Arles. He compares this horse to another red horse, one mentioned in the book of Zechariah. Now, the horse in Zechariah is red from its own blood, a symbol of self-sacrifice. But this horse in Revelation, totally different story. It's red with the blood of others. It represents violence being inflicted out upon the world. A huge distinction. Okay, so we've got the horse. Now let's turn to the figure who's actually on it. Who is this rider, and what's the deal with that giant sword he's carrying? You know, the identity of this rider was a huge point of interpretation for the church fathers. They didn't just see him as some generic symbol for war. To them, he was a very specific agent of chaos. So Caesarius of Arles gives us two possibilities, and they're really two sides of the same coin. Either the rider is the devil himself, the ultimate source of all this strife, or he represents the wicked people on earth whom the devil stirs up and empowers to do his dirty work. And the weapon? We gotta talk about the weapon. It's not just a sword. The text is specific. It's a great sword. That single detail emphasizes the sheer scale of the conflict. This isn't a small skirmish. This is about having the power to cause massive global division, discord, and death. All right, let's get into the writer's specific mission, because this is where a really fascinating theological puzzle emerges. He's sent to take peace from the earth, but, and this is a huge but, the commentators were super clear about which peace he could actually mess with. And what's so interesting here is how the commentators immediately linked this event back to Jesus' own words. For them, the chaos brought by the red horse wasn't some random, shocking development. It was the fulfillment of something Christ himself had prophesied, a necessary, painful division between the faithful and the world. And here it is. This is the core of the paradox. According to Tychonius and Caesarius, the rider only has permission to remove earthly peace, that fragile harmony between nations and people. What he cannot touch is the eternal, unshakable peace that Christ gives to the church. A peace that goes way beyond any worldly chaos. So his mission is laid out right there, in black and white. Take that worldly peace away and stir up so much conflict that people literally turn on each other. It's a vision of complete and total social breakdown. Okay, I know, this all sounds absolutely terrifying, bleak, right? But for the early church fathers, none of this was random. They saw a profound divine logic working behind all the violence and the strife. This is the million-dollar question they all wrestled with. I mean, if God is in control, why on earth would he allow such horrific violence? Their answer was that this chaos, it actually serves a higher purpose. Andrew of Caesarea and Oecumenius saw a clear three-part plan here. First, all this turmoil tests the faith of believers. Second, it completely shatters the sinful unity of the world, especially its agreement around idolatry. And third, it produces martyrs, whose sacrifices are seen as precious, holy offerings in heaven. So what this all boils down to is this. What looks to us like senseless, random violence is completely reframed. It becomes a purposeful instrument in God's hands. It's a divine tool, used to refine the faithful and dismantle evil. As Tychonius puts it so powerfully, the church learns and gets stronger through these struggles. The trials, the violence, the sword. It's all seen as a harsh but necessary teacher for a church that is ultimately destined for victory. And that really leaves us with a challenging final thought. This ancient way of reading Revelation kind of forces us to ask a tough question. If even the most terrifying chaos can be seen as having a divine purpose, how does that change the way we look for meaning in the conflicts and struggles of our own world today?